board. So many great things this morning. And so at NatureKids, we're so grateful to be learning on the nourishing lands in BC, which is Indigenous land. And you know, there's over 200 First Nations that call British Columbia home. And I'm curious about whether you know which communities you're living among. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, because I'm going to introduce our special guests in just a moment. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, tell us your names, where you're living, and perhaps if you know the names of the First Nations that are nearby you, we'd love to hear that too. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can pop them into the chat. So if you've got a grown-up there, if you're familiar with using the chat function, we would love to have conversation with you after our guests Diana and Lucy have offered their presentation. And if you're a nature kid, so special guest or special welcome to all our members. And we have a lot of non-members joining us today too. So we just are really happy to have all of you with us today. Members may know that we have a Passport to Nature program. And this is a way for you to capture all of your nature activities, get an adult to sign it, get a grown-up to sign it, and either send us a photocopy of your passport, an email, or mail it in to us, and you can get prizes. So today can count as one of those 6 sessions for you to join us and share your nature stories with us. All right. So I'm really excited to share today because it's Wildfire Community Preparedness Day today. And we have Diana and Lucy joining us, and I'd like to introduce them for a minute. So Lucy works as a Fire Smart Education Officer. Lucy, can you give us a wave? Hi.
Hello.
For Fire Smart BC. And she recently joined the group, and she works with communities to build practices that reduce wildfire impacts in their region. She graduated from a school here in BC called Quest University and focused on education and social emotional learning. So she's had a decade of experience with wildfire service and primarily through ground crew through RAP Attack program. So if you've got questions, then we can talk to Lucy about all of those different things. Diana is a Fire Smart Education Officer. Diana, big wave.
Hi, everybody.
Morning. And she's got studies in psychology, and she's worked with the BC government, the public service for almost 20 years, and lots of work with people, lots and lots of work with people in an area called human resources. So she's passionate about training and really excited to be leading this session with us today. So she's going to share some tools and some stories that'll help us increase our knowledge to prepare for wildfire season. So please, everybody, big round of applause. Welcome to Diana and Lucy. Now over to you.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Lucy and I are pleased to be here. Lucy, I leave it to you to and so we've divided the presentation into a couple parts, and Lucy is going to begin.
Okay,
so over
good
to you,
morning,
Lucy.
everyone. Yeah. I am also coming to you from Vancouver, so I'm on the land of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations, and I am grateful to be living, working, and playing here. So we're going to talk to you about Fire Smart BC and what fire looks like in BC today. So to begin with, you've already had our introductions. You know where we're coming from. You know what we're doing. Has anyone seen this fox before? You can put like a little hands up in the air, maybe. If you have, you can shake your head no if you haven't. I actually can't see videos, so we're not sure what's going on, but this is our mascot, and her name is Ember. So she's a fox because she's our mascot because she's adaptable, she's community minded, she's highly intelligent, she's very alert. So all of these things make someone into a really good mascot when you're talking about wildfires and wildfire resiliency. So has anyone here seen a wildfire before? You can throw it into the chat and Diana can let me know. but you might have seen big plumes of smoke like in this picture, or maybe you've seen a little orange glow in the mountains. Or maybe you've just seen smoke in the summers. That's a big thing that we're seeing now with wildfires. Or on the news, you hear them a lot. So BC actually sees a lot of wildfires throughout the summer season. We have these huge, beautiful forested areas and these big mountains, and then we're now having these really hot, dry summers. And so those are the things that a wildfire needs in order to start and to grow. So the next question we're going to ask is, what is a wildfire? And to answer that, we're going to start talking about what is fire. So we've all seen fire, whether it's a little campfire, or if you've lit a match, or maybe your stove, or your stove works with fire. So fire is a chemical reaction that releases two things. So it releases light and heat. And it requires three things to burn. And that's called the fire triangle. So if you make a little triangle with your hands, on one side, you need fuel. On another side, you need oxygen, like the air that we breathe. And on the third side, you need heat of some sort. So when we're talking about a campfire, the fuel is going to be those logs that you burn. And when you're talking about a wildfire, the fuels looks like trees or grasses and other plants that are burning. So now that we know about fire, I think we can move this on to talk about wildfire. So wildfire is an uncontrolled fire that happens outside in a regular forest or on a grassy hillside if you're living in the interior, in Kamloops or in Merritt. And so just like a regular fire, whether that's a campfire or a birthday candle, it needs those same three things in that fire triangle in order to burn. So it needs heat, it needs fuel, and it needs oxygen. So we're going to watch a short little video that's going to help explain a little bit more about how a wildfire starts. And just as a note, this video is set in Australia. And so it's actually our neighbors from way down there. And they use a different term. So where we say wildfire, they say bushfire. So you will hear the term bushfire in this video.
Oh, we've got some sound issues, Lucy. Incredible illustrations. Let's try again.
Is there a share sound option, Lucy, when you're sharing the video?
I'm just looking at that.
Yeah.
There is a share sound option. Thank you for that, Emma.
Yeah.
Do we want to watch the video again or?
Sure.
Yes, okay, we're getting nods. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucy.
Okay.
Bushfires are a part of life, not just in many parts of Australia, but all over the world. If we're going to live with fire, we'd better get to know it. A good place to start is the 4 friends of fire. This is Phil. He's a fuel. You probably know Phil best from his work in campfires, but across the globe, Phil takes many forms. Phil is at the heart of every bushfire. Our next friend of fire is Des, the dryness of fuel. You see, if Phil's damp, he won't burn. It's not until Des shows up that things really get cooking. Next up is Iggy, an ignition source. Iggy is known to strike rapidly and without warning. If Phil and Des are already around, the landscape is primed to ignite. It's Iggy's spark that sets off the chemical reaction of fire. Our last friend of fire is Wes, the weather. Bushfires are possible when just Phil, Des and Iggy are together. But it's Wes that can really change the game. When it's hot, dry and windy, even small fires can grow quickly, behaving unpredictably and making them almost impossible to control. It's when the four friends of fire get together that major bushfires can happen.
Okay, so it's a little video from our Australian friends where they're talking. They also experience pretty severe wildfire seasons, the same way we do in the summers. And so they've made some nice videos to help explain it to us so that it's not so unknown. So in the chat, can I get you to type in, either you or one of your grown-ups, how many wildfires you think happen in BC every year? And just while people are starting to type in, I want to note that there's actually lots of really small fires that happen. So the photos that you've seen earlier are these big fires that look like they're really taking over the hillside. But lots of them are about the same size as the fire you see in this picture. So this one is tiny. It's probably no bigger than your living room. So what do we got here? We got 700.
Lots of great answers.
201, 100, 102, 300. Those are some good guesses. The number's actually way higher. So on average, oh, that's a big number.
Good guess.
So on average, we actually have 1,600 fires per year. But last year we had more than that. So we had 2,217 fires. And so that was the most we've had in one season since we've been keeping records. Okay, so the next question is wildfire good or bad? Because it can cause a lot of damage. So the wildfire is this general term that we use that talks about forest fires, it talks about fires in grass, and it talks about fires in other kind of vegetation. And we know that fires can be very dangerous. And so if it gets out of control, it can cause really serious harm and it can cause damage. But the other thing that we don't know too much about now, but we're starting to learn more, is that wildfire is actually a natural phenomenon. And so a natural phenomenon means that it's part of nature. So the natural landscapes that you see wherever you are in BC, as well as the plant life that you see there, even in Vancouver where I am, they were actually shaped by fire. So wildfire has been around on this planet for a very, very long time. It's much, much older than humans, and it's actually even older than dinosaurs. So it's something that is needed for a healthy forest to grow. So if you've ever spent time in a garden and you're going through and you're weeding, and so you're picking out the plants that you don't want, fire does that in forests in the same way. And so it can help pull out plants that are maybe dead and trees that are maybe diseased. And then historically in BC, and today as well, Indigenous people have used fire as a practice. And so they do that to increase forest health. In Penticton, they often use it to protect themselves from ticks. Once the grass gets too tall, they'll burn the grass off, and then it makes it safer for their children and for their animals and whatnot to be out. And it helps create more food in an area for themselves and for the animals. So now that we know that wildfire is an important part of this natural life cycle in an ecosystem, you might be like, well, if wildfires are natural, then why do we fight them? So do we have any ideas about why we might fight fire? One of the main things that we're finding is these days, people live in forests, which many of us probably do here, and they live in places with trees. And so our homes, our businesses, our schools are built into these areas where fire used to have a pretty free roam and free range of. And so if a wildfire gets out of control now, it can be super dangerous to humans and cause harm to people and their homes. So if you and your family live in an area that's forested and there's a fire nearby, you might have to leave your home for safety, which is called an evacuation. And so homes and schools and these other important buildings can get damaged if they're not prepared. So if you just take a minute to look at this picture, what do you notice here? There's the trees, there's the fire on the hillside, and then we're seeing the water, and we're seeing some deer in the water. So this is a really cool photo because it's actually showing that wildfire has been around for so long that different plants and animals have adapted so that they've learned how to live with it. So they've actually changed things that they're doing and changed the way that they move in a forest so that they can stay safe with fire. So the elk in the river, they're actually going there because they know that, thankfully, water doesn't burn. And so it's a very safe place to go during a fire. So a lot of animals that live in areas that have wildfires have this instinct for avoiding wildfire. So some of them will head down slope as soon as they see a fire start because most fires burn upslope. Others will go to water source like these deer or these elk. And then there's other funny adaptations with trees as well. Some trees have grown bark that's super, super thick. And so a fire can't actually burn the tree. So if a fire comes through, it'll just pass on by and the tree will continue living. So
That's right.
I'm handing
Thanks.
it over to Diana now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lucy. That's great. And a really good, great point. So the animals and the natural environment has learned to adapt with wildfire over time. And if they've done so, we humans, it's about time we start doing the same thing. And that's really a big part of what Fire Smart is all about. So Lucy mentioned it a little bit earlier, but just to sort of kind of get her head and wrap her head around the concept of Fire Smart, you start by looking at, so does anybody here live close to a forest or close to a park? Or do you have trees or bushes around your home? So many of us do. And so it's really important to understand how wildfires can spread from forests to neighborhoods so that we can be prepared. And so what's really interesting and really important to know about wildfires is that they throw off bits of burning wood called embers. So just like when you're at a campfire and you hear that crack and a little ember goes shooting off into the distance, that flaming little piece of wood has now traveled to another area. In a wildfire, there are lots and lots of those embers. And they can collect, they can sort of, first of all, they can fly long distances. So they can go from the wild land area and they can fly into communities, and they can collect around buildings and start new fires in towns. And so because we know that, we can prepare for that. So having our homes and communities prepared for wildfire is what we call being fire smart. And so what exactly does that look like? And this picture just shows that there's different areas around your house that you can protect. And so there's some different strategies for that. But just to kind of give an overview, just like when we wear a helmet, when we ride our bikes, or we use sunscreen to protect our skin from the sun, Fire Smart is the set of actions we can take to protect ourselves and our homes and the environment from the danger of wildfires. When we fire smart our home, we make it hard for those embers to collect and then cumulatively start a new fire. Go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So before we kind of go into the next step, it's important to remember that even though fires may be scary, there are things that we can do to protect ourselves and our homes. So with that said, how about if we just take a minute, and there's some great examples in the pictures here, but let's brainstorm some ideas of what we can do ourselves in our environment to make our homes safe from wildfire. I'll just give you a minute. If you want to type an idea or two into the chat, that would be great. And you can see some of the folks here doing some maintenance in their communities and in their homes. Right. Okay, great. So we've got some good ones taking leaves out around our house. Some of the most easy things to do are some of the most effective things to do as well. So that's another really important concept. So for example, picking up branches on the ground. So over the winter, spring, fall, you name it, branches fall down. So, when those happen, instead of letting them collect, if you pick them up and dispose of them, that's one source that you're removing that could potentially collect embers. And as you mentioned, getting some great ideas coming in. Thank you so much, you guys. Keeping dry leaves, pine needles, and branches away from your home. So the reason you want to do that is you want to make sure that there are no materials that can burn near your house. And so other things besides stuff that falls off trees are things like propane tanks, firewood and patio cushions, those kinds of items that can collect embers and that can easily burn. We want to keep those as far away from our house as possible. So, leaves don't just accumulate on the ground. They have a fun habit of getting into our gutters. And so cleaning gutters regularly to take out the needles and leaves so that they can't pile up on the roof of our house. And the roof is a pretty big area. So we want to do everything we can to protect it. So making sure we clean the gutters so that there's nothing there impacting is very helpful. Keeping your lawn short. As you can see, we got a couple working hard in one of the pictures there. And teaching our grown-ups, our families, and our friends and neighbors about Fire Smart and how they too can protect themselves. When we do these things, we're making our home and our environment safer from fires. Next slide, please. So we talked about ember briefly a few minutes ago, and I just want to share a really nice video. And this is, to give you a little bit more information about Ember and what Ember recently did to help out the neighborhood of Maple Grove to become more fire smart. So yeah, please go ahead. Thanks.
Meet Ember, the fire smart fox. She lives in the forest next to a neighborhood called Maple Grove. Every day, Ember walks into town to teach local people how to be fire smart. But what is fire smart? Well, let's take a look at the forest. Sometimes wildfires start there because of lightning, but they can also be caused by humans. Wildfires can be dangerous for the people in Maple Grove because their homes are so close to the woods. Ember always reminds everyone to move things that can burn, such as firewood, branches, and toys, so the fire can't reach their homes. Take a look at the Patel's house. Out on a walk one day, Ember saw that they had a messy lawn with long, dry grass. She was worried by what she saw. The shingles were made of wood, which can burn, and the roof was covered with branches and leaves. She knew that if fire came, the house would be in a lot of trouble. So she called to the Patels. If you remove all the fuel for the fire, it can't get to your door. She even helped them clean up their property, and the whole family was very grateful. So being fire smart means removing all the stuff that can burn on and around our homes. Ember stops by the school, the corner store, and even Mr. Chen's farm too, because she knows everyone in Maple Grove needs to be fire smart to keep safe. And every spring, when the flowers start to bloom, Ember and the community have a barbecue. Everyone in Maple Grove comes together. They eat a lot of food and team up to make their neighborhood fire smart. Ember knows that if the neighbors all work together, they can protect their homes, their neighborhood, and those they love by being fire smart.
Great. Thank you so much. So again, we can't stop wildfires from happening. And again, they are also good for forests, so we don't necessarily want to do that completely. But we also don't want them to happen near our homes and our communities. So just like animals, we've learned how to live and adapt to being in environments where there's a threat of wildfire coming close. And we need to start doing fire smart work on our homes to prevent them from catching on fire should there be a nearby wildfire. So what can we all do, and each of us individually, to help? Well, first of all, be safe this summer. Enjoy time with family and friends. And if you are around a campfire, enjoy it, but just make sure that you enjoy it responsibly, and that it's out for sure when you're done enjoying it. And then also go talk to your family and friends in your communities about what you've learned about Fire Smart. That will really help getting that message out and helping people learn the many simple things that can be done that can make a really important difference. Next slide, please. So as Rebecca mentioned at the beginning, today is May 4th, and it's Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. And it's a day celebrated all across the country. And community members get together and are doing that cleanup like you saw in the Maple Grove video. So we thought it would be fun to put a little fun activity forward for you to consider doing. And it's if you complete a Fire Smart Kids home assessment, you have a chance to win an Ember Stuffy prize package. And I'm just going to quickly show you. I'm going to make sure it's hard to get that. There we go. Anyways, there's that one item in it, and it's going to be somewhat a surprise. There's some other things, but I will share in time for summer a nice mug and a nice Ember Stuffy. So there is an opportunity to win that prize pack. The assessments are on the website. I put the link on the page here, and all we ask is that with your family, you do an assessment. It's, I think, 3 pages long. And then when you finished your assessment, just put your name on the front of it, take a picture of it, and then just email that picture to education@firesmartbc.ca for a chance to win. And so we will accept applications, or we will accept entries up until May 10th. And it's a fun activity. I hope you will like to do that, sort of in celebration of what you've learned today, and also of becoming an ambassador for Fire Smart, and getting the message of how we can protect ourselves from the dangers of the wildfires that may come to our communities. And one more thing. Next slide, please. We might have a little surprise for you because you've been so good. You've asked questions. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. If you call Ember, and you can wave, you can do whatever works for you, but we may be able to get Ember to come out of her den and answer some of your questions for the rest of the time we have together. So I'm going to say, Ember, please come out. We want to ask some questions. Ember. I think I hear Ember coming. Ember. I hear something. I can hear some footsteps.
Look what we have.
Oh my goodness. I thought so.
Oh my goodness. Ember is very tall.
Hi, Ember. How are you? Good. You doing well? Yeah. So this is the part of the presentation where we've shared some information, and if we would love to ask some questions from you guys, if you have any. And Ember, we're going to pass it over to you. Maybe if you wouldn't mind whispering them over to Lucy, and we can answer. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, great. Okay. So we do have a question about the assessment applicable to apartment dwellers too. I'm gonna say, everybody, do your best with the assessment and send us whatever you can, because your apartment building is going to have a roof. It's going to have all those pieces as well. So just do your best. We absolutely want you to enter the contest and enjoy the activity. So that one. Okay, next question. How about I pass it over to you, Lucy? Do you have the chat open, or do you want me to do? Okay.
I see the comment that Elena, that their dog is named Ember as well.
Yeah.
That's an amazing connection. It's a great name.
Cool. It's a great name. Neat.
So does anyone have any questions about foxes or about fire or about being safe outdoors this summer?
Mhm.
Ember is very happy to answer them.
And is it okay if they unmute as well? You're welcome to unmute if you wanted to ask a question. Ah, great question. What if someone owns the property beside us, but they aren't fire smart? So what can we do there, Ember?
What do you think, Ember? Okay. So Ember thinks that that's a great question, and she thinks that it's a great opportunity to get to know your neighbors better. So one of the best ways that you can become fire smart is by doing it together. It's way, way more effective if we all do it together than if just one person or one household does it.
Mhm.
So using some of the things that you learned today, it's a good option. You can go onto our website and you can take a look around, and you can use that starting point to start talking. To your neighbors. I was just looking at the questions as they're coming.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also share with them that there's some really easy, simple things that can be done, like cleaning your gutters. And that's important just beyond, the fire piece. That's important for other reasons, for the maintenance of your house. So just start small.
Okay, what else do we got? How big does a wildfire get to be called a wildfire? Okay. So it's actually any size. So even the really, really tiny ones, if you had one that was like a foot by a foot, but it was in the forest, then it would be considered a wildfire. Ember's actually put some of those out before by herself. And how fast are foxes? How fast are you, Ember? Ooh, she says she's the fastest fox.
That's what I've heard. There's one for you, Lucy, about firefighting. Tell a little bit about firefights, about a wildfire you fought. That's cool.
So I was lucky enough to work for the BC Wildfire Service, and I actually worked all over BC. So I've worked on super, super tiny fires, like the ones we were talking about earlier, where you are out in the middle of nowhere. Like they're so far away, you couldn't even hike to it. And then I've also worked on some pretty big fires that are maybe a bit closer to communities and require a lot more communication and a lot more strategy. So like they'll have a lot of heavy equipment. So that's where you'll see like the big diggers and the excavators and the bulldozers, and you'll see lots of helicopters. So really the whole gambit. I've seen a lot of wildfire in my life.
Next question is, oh, sorry, Lucy. Oh, I was just the next question is really a great question too. What do I do if I see a fire starting?
Okay. So Ember says, if you see a fire starting, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you are safe, that you and your family are safe. And then after that, you're going to do what's called reporting it. And so you can call in to the BC Wildfire Service and you can let them know where the fire is and what you see. And they'll ask you a bunch of questions to help with that piece. So they'll be like, how big is it? Can you tell me where it is? Can you send me any pictures?
Exactly. All right, lots of great questions coming in. What is the best way to help animals during a wildfire? What a great question. Oh, I missed one, but I'll grab it. Don't worry.
Ooh, Ember really likes that question. She likes what
Mhm.
people think about animals. So animals actually are pretty good by themselves when it comes to wildfire. They really get out of the way. So like they're better at wildfire than humans are actually because they're a lot more mobile, which is good. So when they can smell smoke or when they see fire, they actually just get out of the way most of the time.
All right. What do we need to do if a wildfire is near our house and we have to leave?
Mm, okay. Okay. So if a wildfire is close to your house, says Ember, and you have to leave, the best thing you can do is prepare beforehand. So a lot of the things that we talked about today are all things that you can do now before a wildfire is close. And so those things will allow you to be able to leave your home and feel pretty good about it. One of the other things that you can do is have a grab and go bag. And so a grab and go bag just looks like a backpack or something that has things that you might need if it's a really fast or you need to leave quite quickly. And so it's not necessarily just for wildfire. If you live on the coast, those things are also good if you're doing like earthquake drills or fire drills. It's just a nice way to be prepared and to know that if something happens, you'll be okay.
Yeah. And another question for Lucy. They want the group wants to know what you did as a firefighter. What was your role?
Ooh. I worked at the Rap Attack base out of Salmon Arm, and so what what we do is we use helicopters to get into fires that are super remote or really hard to get into. And so we'd fly in, we'd drop a rope down, and then we'd rappel down, which means you attach yourself to the rope and you lower yourself on the rope to get into the fire.
And then fight it from there.
And then fight it from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. How can I become a wildfire firefighter?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a great summer job. It is really fun. You get to work with really, really excellent people. Like the team that you work with is absolutely top notch. So for most people, when you're a little bit older, you can apply through the BC government. And so it's the BC Wildfire Service. If you see the folks in the red shirts and the blue pants, that's what firefighters look like in communities. So you can apply through them and then become a wildfire fighter that way. Okay.
Great. Okay.
How much
Yeah.
more time do we have for questions,
Yeah.
Rebecca?
Are we good? One more minute? Oh, one more question. Okay. So we'll do one more question, but we'll make sure we have answers to all of these. And if that's okay, we'll yeah. And then, okay, great. So how about where can we find a checklist of things that we should put in a grab and go bag? I'll take that one and I'll say that we will send a link to Rebecca for what needs to be in a grab and go bag so you actually can share that with your parents. And then we'll just, if one more, is it safe to play outside if there's smoky skies? What do you think, Ember?
Hmm. Okay. So smoke is not really that good for your lungs. And so it's good to take a look and see what the air quality looks like. So sometimes when it's really smoky outside, it's not great for anyone to be outside. And it might be better to stay inside or to go to a community center and maybe to go swimming instead of going outside. So it's just a good idea to take a look at the information that's out there and see what they say. Because sometimes it feels really terrible, doesn't it?
Thank you very much. Back over to you, Rebecca.
Can we all
Thank
give a
you.
big round of applause to Lucy and Diana for joining us and sharing so much about fire ecology this morning on such a special day? And thank you, Ember. What a surprise. So great to see you. And we will be sending links out to your family. The learning doesn't stop here. We'll be sure to send a note to your families after today with all sorts of answers to your questions, links, the videos that you saw today that you could share with friends or your classroom. And there were some great further questions about outreach in specific communities as well. So we'll share where you can find fire smart resources right across British Columbia. If you're not already following us on Instagram and Facebook, we invite you to do that because, as was suggested by Lucy, sometimes you aren't going outside to investigate nature. Sometimes you need a craft to think about nature, or you need another activity. And we share here at NatureKids BC, we keep you filled with ideas about how to connect with nature outside and inside. And we would love for you to enjoy the rest of your day today. Thanks so much to Fire Smart BC for joining us. And we want you all to stay safe and have a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Rebecca and everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.